Good morning, everyone, and welcome once again to Tasty Tuesday in my kitchen. And today we are doing the third of a three-part series on breakfasts from around the world. And I shared with you two of my favorite, also a little bit different breakfasts over the past couple of weeks. We did shakshuka from Israel, and last week we did coconut roti with sambal. And today we are doing what I think is probably the strangest breakfast we've ever had from the Maldives. It's called Mas Huni, and I have trouble saying that word for some reason. Mas Huni. And when we got to the Maldives, we stayed on this tiny little island. The Maldives is very expensive, but we found this great Airbnb that was $90 a day for our room, and it included breakfast, lunch, and dinner for both of us for $90 a day. We would go back to this place in a heartbeat. It was on a very small island that was about 1 mile long and a half a mile wide, and we were there for 3 weeks, and it was pure heaven. So every morning at breakfast, along with some other items, we were served this dish. And in the beginning, we had no idea what it was. It was so unique. And they served it alongside chapati, which is basically roti, which is what I showed you last week. I'm not doing roti today, but I have some pita bread, and I'm just heating it up here in a skillet so that it's nice and warm when I serve the Mas Huni. So let me show you how you make Mas Huni, and you'll be astounded with the ingredients. But let me tell you, they sound bizarre, but it's so delicious. So the first thing is 1 cup of unsweetened coconut, and to that we are adding 12 ounces, or you can do 2 cups even, of tuna. This is canned yellowfin tuna. In the Maldives, we would have been served fresh tuna, which was cooked probably the day before. In the Maldives, they fish skipjack tuna and yellowfin tuna. That's their main fish that they get in their fishing industry. And so they use tuna a lot because they have so much of it. But you can easily use canned tuna in this recipe. And I have here yellowfin tuna. To the coconut and tuna, I have chopped up a half a red onion, a half of a pretty large shallot, so it's probably at least a 1/4 cup of shallot, and a half of a jalapeño. That goes in. And that adds the shallot, again, one of my favorite types of onion, adds such a nice sweetness. Let's check our pita bread here, make sure it's not burning. And now I'm just going to add some salt, just eyeballing it, some fresh ground pepper. Now you might want to make this dish an hour ahead, but you don't have to. That would help get the flavors to meld. So the place we stayed in the Maldives, it was a buffet every morning. Actually, breakfast, lunch, and dinner were all a buffet. And so this huge bowl of this would be served, and all the guests would grab their chapati, put the Mas Huni on it, and also we would have eggs and salads and sometimes soup. It was wonderful for $90 a day. Probably the best bargain of anywhere we have stayed. So, by the way, I drained the tuna. I don't know if I said that. You want to drain the tuna, and if you possibly can, you try using fresh tuna. Don't use ahi. You want yellowfin, or skipjack. That's what it looks like. Crazy breakfast food, right? All right, I'm gonna get the pita bread on a plate and we're gonna give it a try. Super easy too. Ooh, I can smell that shallot. All right, we'll be right back. So our pita bread is nice and warm. And like I said, roti, chapati, naan, any of those flatbreads would be what you would normally use, but this is gonna work just fine. And I'm gonna serve this to Arnie and I for breakfast this morning, but let me just test it for you here. The flavors, the combination of flavors, I mean, it's crazy. Coconut, tuna fish, who would ever have thought to put those things together? The sweetness of the shallot, the little bit bitterness of the red onion, it's a great combination. Tiny bit of heat from the jalapeno, and you definitely want to test for salt. You know, each person has their own preference, but Mas Huni, crazy Maldivian breakfast. Haven't seen anything like this anywhere else in the world. Oh, it's just so good. It's just so crazy that the coconut and the tuna fish work so well together. Very easy recipe. You can find all these ingredients in your grocery store. Give it a try and let me know what you think. Mas Huni from the Maldives. Next week, we'll be back with not another breakfast food. We'll have another special Tasty Tuesday for you. So thanks for joining me today in my kitchen, and see you later.